Hello, welcome to the Battleground Project, an experiment in Christian localism. I'm C.R. Wylie.
And I'm Max Booth. On this podcast, we hope to discuss local issues from a Christian perspective. And while these issues are specific to our little town of Battleground, we hope that you'll find them helpful wherever you are.
Hey, Max.
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good. We're in a little bit different situation today. We are at Hamilton and Lee here in Battleground, right off 72, and we are surrounded by enormous slabs of wood.
This might be the manliest place we've recorded yet.
Well, it's definitely manlier than Sweetleys, which we were last week. Last time we were with everybody. That's a great place, great food, and but it definitely has a feminine feel.
Different vibe for sure.
That's right. But anyway, we're here with Jeff and Brad, and these guys have got a lot of interesting stuff they're into and doing. And so why don't we just start with you, Brad, and just introduce yourself, and then go to Jeff. And
I'm Brad Williams with Hamilton Lee Supply here locally. We also run a furniture division, Hamilton Lee Design, so it's all geared around LiveEdge slabs and epoxy tables.
Yeah, I mean, I failed to mention that these are live slabs, and we were talking a little bit about this. And by the way, I bought one of your slabs. Mm-hmm. I bought a nice elm slab that I turned into a mantle, and it turned out great. And thank you for that. It's had a couple nice burls in it that would wrap right around my stovepipe.
They look cool.
Anyway, Jeff.
Just don't get it too close.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've been feeling it when I light up the stove and get it really hot. I feel it. It's good. It's good. Anyway, Jeff, introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jeff Williams. I'm Brad's dad. Of course, so we're closely related. We're in the business together here, Hamilton Lee Supply, although he does most of the work. I've got some other things I'm working on as well. And we all moved up here as a family. There's now 10 of us. He has 2 of 6 kids that were born since we arrived here.
Oh, wow.
But we all arrived roughly a little over 3 years ago.
Wow, well, you know that's about the time I got here. I got here about 3 years ago. It was March of 2020, during the middle of the insanity that we call a pandemic, which, anyway, we won't get into that. But anyway, now, Jeff, I heard a little bit about your background. You spent a lot of time in Russia, but the reason you were there had a really interesting kind of backstory to it. So you were with NASA. Mm-hmm. You want to fill folks in a little bit on that?
Yeah, actually, when I got out of high school, I went to the military academy and spent 27 years active Army in aviation.
So you were in the Army with the aviation?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. I went to flight school, became a pilot in 1981, and flew. I was in the cockpit for 40 years. Mm. And during that path, in 1996, after applying multiple times, I got accepted by NASA as an astronaut.
Cool.
So the last, since 96 up until we moved here, I was dedicated to the International Space Station. Uh-huh. I had 4 flights, 4 visits building the space station, and most recently in 2016. And I actually continued to work because of the COVID shutdown, and continued to work coordinating mostly with our Russian partners, but our other international partners as well, up until this last January.
Yeah, that's remarkable. That's pretty neat.
No kidding. That's wild.
And the space station, as you alluded to, is an international endeavor, and includes Japan, the European Space Agency, which is made up of about a dozen countries, Canada, us, and Russia. So that required a lot of time in Russia, which eventually and indirectly led us here.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. So, folks here in Battleground, of course, know we have a large Slavic population, a lot of Russians, a lot of Ukrainians. But I don't think people outside this part of the country have any idea that that's the case.
That's right. All my time in the Moscow area, I eventually got connected with the evangelical community, which is a very small minority, historically very persecuted. In fact, our pastor's father here spent 3 years in prison for his faith in the 60s.
Yeah, I've got a number of friends who are Russian evangelicals, and they have similar stories about family members. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just we just don't have an appreciation for just what folks went through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a long story, but through those connections, became aware. Alexei Kolomitsev, who's the pastor here, and I met in California. And an event that established an immediate friendship and relationship, and we were doing some ministry activities together. That was since 2014. Never thinking we would ever move here.
Yeah.
Because we were traveling up here from Houston. In 2019, we brought Brad and the family and invited them, hey, come along, let's make it a family vacation. And they fell in love with the place. And
Neat.
a few weeks later, we were talking about possibility of moving here, and here we are.
Yeah, very different from Houston.
Yeah.
I got a daughter-in-law from Houston. Been down there a few times.
Well, and most people are moving from places like this to Texas.
And to Houston.
Yeah, right.
So we made out well with the trade. You guys are here now. And but anyway, Brad, what attracted you? I mean, as I look around, was it wood?
Well, it wasn't ever part of the plan. Let's put it that way. So, knowing that we were moving up here, we started the business. It was always kind of going in the background around construction, but an opportunity presented itself in Houston to get a shop there. A couple partners that ultimately didn't materialize to where we were hoping to. So I started a shop in Magnolia, down the street from Conroe, and I think I signed the lease in February. We moved up here in April. I remote ran a business back and forth, but immediately moved up here and started looking for sources and ran across Dan and Marshall, who just left the room. They were both cutting wood down on the south side of Vancouver. Developed relationships. One thing led to another, and we had the fruit of starting a location here. So took a lot of wood back and forth from Houston to here.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Made a lot of trips.
I guess
this
is like a super exotic thing to be able to
This is
use.
stuff you only saw on the internet. You only saw on social media
Right.
from the Pacific Northwest. So there's special things up here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm a pastor, as you know, at the Westminster Presbyterian Church. We've got a building we're working on in Battleground that you guys are helping us out with. At least we hope it's going to work out that way, where we're going to be putting some timber frame elements on a building, and you guys are going to be doing that part of the work with us. What is sort of the range of stuff that you guys are into? I mean, I look around, I see this cool coffee table over there. It's a slab. It's a section of, cross section, not a long cut. So, and you mentioned furniture. And we were talking before we even started about the interest, around the world in this stuff,
Right.
particularly LiveEdge stuff, which is something that I don't remember, going back, So, Max and I both have a background in construction as well as other things. And it seems to me like I always thought about this stuff as something that, Japanese folks were into, that kind of thing. And now it's everywhere. And can you maybe get into that a little bit?
Well, it's popularized in the 70s, so it's definitely made a comeback by a Japanese American. And so it's had elements through the years of being popular, mid-century modern.
Yeah, sure.
But has definitely, through COVID and social media, been brought to the forefront here lately in the last 5 to 7 years. But we are tree to table and now tree to back patio. So we've done harvesting of trees from people's property. We've got some white oak that's going to go back as a dining room table and some other associated tables for a customer in Camas. So it's through the life of making the best use of what otherwise would be firewood. Now to include timbers. So the timber framing is a new endeavor. So.
Not only otherwise firewood, but something that's beautiful. It's just everything is unique, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's almost as though people were throwing away this beautiful stuff for years because it didn't make good lumber.
Right.
Now it's
didn't work for the woodworker.
Yeah, right.
So.
But now the weirder it is, the better.
The uglier the tree, the better. So.
Yeah, we got this one of these huge burls here. That's pretty fascinating stuff.
It's incredible. You see that in your yard and you think this thing's diseased. We got to cut it out of here.
That's right. Right.
But
Call
what
Brad.
It looks like.
Call Brad.
If you have disease-looking trees.
That's right.
Well, there's that ugly. We buy ugly houses.
Yeah,
sure. Marketing ploy for flips. We got the same philosophy on trees. So.
Right.
I like
That's
it.
great.
Do you think this is getting more popular or become this thing And maybe it wasn't then because of modern tools and stuff that make this stuff kind of a reality. You say it was crummy lumber in traditional.
Yeah, modern tools have helped the bring into the forefront the epoxy has.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's both sides of the spectrum. Some people love epoxy. There's guys out there that hate it. I personally just look at it as a way to take what otherwise would be unusable wood that is typically the prettiest because it was an old tree, it had the disease element, it had the character build, and salvage it and make it into something useful.
Yeah.
So
No,
there's a whole green component of it nowadays, and popularizing the carbon footprint of what you're salvaging. So that tree in a landfill would otherwise be just this extra carbon.
Yeah,
back
so
into
the Tesla owner who's like really into all this, sort of renewable energy stuff can feel good about in a really expensive piece of wood that they just
Exactly.
buy.
Yeah, I tell people I'm a tree hugger. I hug it all the way to the sawmill.
That's right. That's right.
I love it.
Yeah. Now you gave me some beeswax, lemon beeswax finish that really was great. A lot of fun to smell and work with and so forth. So that's not the epoxy, but it's kind of part of maybe this other side of things that you're talking about.
Yeah, you're seeing a pushback to sustainable, healthy, food-safe oil finishes, typically, and away from the chemical compensation of what they used to be. So
Great. Yeah. So this is a great thing. I know. Do you guys have a website? Yeah, in fact, I remember checking it out, saying I need to get over there.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to it in the show notes. But this is kind of the tip of the iceberg for you guys. You guys got other things going on. You've only been here 3 years, but you were mentioning some other things. So there's the furniture. What other things are you guys interested in talking about?
Well, on our side, everything is framed around the Hamilton Lee business name, but getting back into construction is a goal. Recently teamed up with a local GC that's been in the business for many years, so we're seeing where that relationship goes. But custom home building, commercial general contracting, things of that nature to get back to that. And the main goal was, at least with the homes, was to create a cyclical economy, if you will. So if a home customer comes to us and wants to build a custom on 10 acres, 20 acres out in the woods, we can take wood off that property and recycle it back into the home, be it furniture, lumber, timbers, whatever.
Great.
So even though they're separate businesses, they all work together and touch each other. So
kind of the synergy model.
Over the years prior to moving, Brad built some beautiful homes and some commercial projects that he did, like a storefront kind of thing. But the homes were just getting gorgeous. So he and I designed a home together. We bought a lot prior to COVID. We were going to build a spec home. And then COVID shut everything down, and we decided to move here. And everything combined, we ended up selling the lot. But we still had those beautiful plans, I hope, one day to realize up here.
Yeah,
and this setting is much better than Houston.
Right. So, this is interesting because, with your background, Jeff, this is kind of a lateral move. There's no obvious connection between what you were doing before and this. Was it Brad who drug you into this, or was this something you were already interested in?
Well, I grew up.
he dragged me into it.
Okay.
I grew up on a dairy farm in northern Wisconsin, but my grandfather was a carpenter and built homes.
Okay.
And he was, along with my parents, my grandfather had a very significant impact on me. As soon as I was old enough to swing a hammer in the summer times, I wanted to be with him on the job site. So I got all the experience of building homes in the summers through high school and even before that. And then throughout life after that, in the military and NASA, woodworking was always a hobby that I had.
Yeah.
And ironically, when Brad was young, a boy, I would always invite him out, hey, come out to the garage with me. And I could never sustain his interest if I even gained it until later. And then all of a sudden, he's in it.
I know that story. I've got a couple of grown sons. I know how that works. But anyway.
But we had a pecan tree come down in Hurricane Harvey.
Okay.
In Houston, and it was just in the backyard for a while, and I was building homes, not really swinging a hammer, dabbling a little bit in woodworking here and there, but nothing to any degree. But his background was always woodworking in the garage, and that's what his hobby was. So how can we make the best use of this material? Oh, let's find a local sawmill. We couldn't find a local sawmill. Google wasn't popularizing it yet, so you couldn't really find someone on the map. And so we drove to Missouri and did what anybody else would do and bought a sawmill. And then
That's what I would do.
building custom homes.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
Pretty soon I had 40 to 60 logs in the backyard, and one thing led to another.
Nice.
And nobody knew who they would come out to talk to him about making a table or whatnot. And I was that old guy in the back, full of sawdust, milling slabs. They had no idea who I was in my other days.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I'm of the conviction that it's great when you can have, a range of interests that kind of balance out.
Oh yeah.
So if you've got like a profession that's just mainly desk work, you got to have something else, that's physical, getting you working with your hands. But being a pilot, that's pretty physical. So you've had some sort of an interesting range of experiences. Now, one of the things, we were talking about before we started recording, though, was, while you were in Russia, as you noted just a minute ago, you made some connections with Russian evangelicals, and now you're, part of a pretty significant Russian evangelical church here in Battleground, which everybody knows about, Word of Grace. Maybe I overstated it. Maybe people don't know it. Maybe that I'm assuming know. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I would say the majority of the folks are not aware of it, although it's becoming more known in the local area. Yeah, as a backbone of my life since the late 80s, when my wife and I came to faith in Christ, that kind of became what drove me. So even before getting to NASA in '96, I was studying theology on my own, reading, and I was quickly teaching Bible studies and whatnot in our church. So that kind of was the backbone of life since then. And so my time in Russia, which I launched 3 times on a Russian Soyuz from Kazakhstan.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of time in Russia training for that.
Yeah.
Then eventually I got involved and connected with the evangelical community there. Interestingly, some of your listeners will be familiar with the name John MacArthur. I was there in Moscow when the MacArthur Study Bible was released in Russian.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And there were 1,500 pastors and church leaders from all over the former Soviet Union there assembled in Moscow.
Yeah.
So that was a big event. And then we don't have enough time to go through the details, but became aware of the ministry of Word of Grace here in Battleground. And in God's providence, Alexei and I and both our wives crossed paths at an event in California. By that time, we knew of each other, but they immediately invited us to come up here, my wife and I. So we started coming up in 2014, averaging once a year. We'd come up and speak at the church or for different events, and that established the relationship.
And you speak Russian.
Нужно говорить по-русски, да.
Yeah. I believe you.
With a very good accent, I'm told.
And I got a witness, he speaks Russian, so
He doesn't speak Russian.
But yeah, so it's an amazing story, backstory of a lot of details over decades that brought us here. Now, a few people are aware of Word of Grace Bible Church, and it's got a great reputation. A lot of people know about the Christmas concert, for example.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But not
I've been
many
to it
people.
several times. It's excellent.
Not many people know, or fewer people are aware of the impact it's making in the world through the pulpit ministry, which is online, different platforms. Before we ever considered moving here, they asked me to join their board of directors. So I've been involved in that for a long time. We get about 2 million listens every month.
That's really remarkable.
From all over the world, over 100 countries.
Yeah.
Because there were many people that left the Soviet Union when it fell. Yeah, so they're all over the world.
Right.
And everywhere I go in the world, if I run into Russian speakers that are believers, that are Christians, they know of Word of Grace, Slovo Blagodati in Russian.
Nice.
And they know the name Alexei Kolomitsev.
That's great.
Wow.
It's marvelous to hear that we've got a local pastor that's having that kind of reach. That's tremendous. Now, in terms of your work here with Hamilton Lee and other things you're doing, obviously because you're believers, that informs your work. Is there anything maybe you want to say about how that happens, or reflect on it?
Yeah, I mean, we try. I think Brad and I come to the table with that always growing and developing worldview on all of life, right? And that includes vocations in life and what you're called to. Brad hosts every Tuesday morning here at 7:00. He hosts a networking meeting, and everybody that attends are believers, and they're trying to encourage one another and
Great.
Network and
Now, is that open to anybody or just the guys in the trades? Is there like
It's formulated towards guys with the trades, but I've opened it to everybody. And my goal would be that if you're a framer framing a house, you don't have time for marketing. So
right?
getting in touch with someone that does marketing is crucial, or just even
Right.
how to structure that. So it's bringing in the other tools, ideally, to help businesses and individuals succeed. So
Nice.
I would also add, back to that question, is Brad talked about the green movement and all that, and
Yeah.
joking about tree huggers or whatnot. But there's also a stewardship
Yeah.
element with a Christian worldview.
Yeah.
And God in his wisdom created resources for us and gave us the capacity to go find the resources and make something, create wealth out of them.
Right.
So this is you take a log that otherwise would just lay in the ground and rot or get cut up into firewood, and then you slab it, you make something, you add a little value to it, and then you take the slab, you put it in a kiln, you dry it, get the moisture out of it so it's workable, and you add a little value to it. And then you put it over here in our flattener, and you get flat surface on it like you see all around you here. And now a craftsman can use it.
Yeah.
And then you add the other things, whatever, epoxies or whatnot, and you make something that looks like that beautiful table there, which is a piece of art.
And one of a kind.
And one of a kind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the best part about wood. I've got a trim carpentry background. I never did much stuff with LiveEdge slabs, but I do really appreciate that. What's a piece like that end up costing roughly?
out the door,
Sure.
1,800 or so.
Okay.
So it's a madrone burl from southern Oregon, central southern Oregon.
Yeah.
So it's got local, pushback that way.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple leg design, and it'll go in as a coffee table for a new custom home.
Yeah.
Do you guys make the legs too, or do you?
No, I work with a company out of Portland named called Mayway Designs, and Pete does a phenomenal job on their legs. He did our custom legs, and then he's got some prefab legs. So, yeah.
Well, that's neat. And so as we look around, you got all kinds of wood here. I mean, this is not like just, Douglas fir. You've got some of that, but you got a lot of their stuff. So I picked up some elm. What else you got?
We've got the local stuff, big leaf maple, mappa burl, walnuts, cedar of Lebanon, just a lot of local woods. But then we also have a lot of California olive. We've got some buckeye burl occasionally from California. So California is a rich source. The slab with the most acclaim, if you will, is a piece of sinker cypress that is carbon dated to 181 BC, so about 2,000 years old.
Really?
Let me guess, that's not on sale.
It doesn't go on sale very often, unfortunately.
Where'd you find that?
It was dug up when they were digging a retention pond. Think 25, 30 feet in the mud.
Louisiana?
I think it was outside of Louisiana.
Oh, wow, that makes sense now.
Either Alabama or Louisiana.
And it was a whole tree or whole trunk of a tree.
Yeah, if you picture the movies where you see them going through the swamps and you've got those trees with the legs, that's cypress.
Yep.
And
Right.
then so the top of the tree would get knocked down in a hurricane, 2,000 years ago, and the rest of it would just get buried in a hurricane and a deluge of water or whatnot. And over the years, it gets buried, and then we humans come in to dig a pond, and excavator knocks on it. And
those cypress swamps down there in Louisiana are some of the funkiest places you ever want to visit.
Don't go wading in the water. They're full of alligators.
That's right. That's right. So, that's great stuff. We've spent a little time learning about the business. Is there anything else maybe that you guys are like thinking about, or something that you just are dreaming about that you are ready to share?
I'll let him think about it a minute, but I will take the opportunity to say we're delighted to be in Battleground. And
it's a great town.
What a beautiful town. People, you maybe it was before we started recording, you talked about we moved here in the middle of the COVID thing when people were leaving for political reasons, so we were going the opposite way. But ironically, from a social point of view and just a community point of view, I don't think I've ever lived in as a conservative community as here in Battleground and the surrounding area.
Yeah, I was talking with my wife last night about this. My wife teaches over at Music World. She's a piano teacher. She said every other practice room, the people were working on hymns, and stuff. And so there are a lot of believers. Like I'll sit in a coffee shop and I'll see over at a table right next to me a couple of people leaning over a Bible, talking about what they're reading and stuff like that. It really is a marvelous place. So I'm from New England, which is very different.
We've lived there.
Oh, okay. So what part?
Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then I was 4 years in New York.
Okay.
Early on.
So what town in Rhode Island?
Middletown, so outside of Newport, right at Newport. I went to the Naval War College.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've been in Newport many times, and I lived in Tolland, Connecticut for years before that, up in Cambridge and Boston and stuff like that. But people, will ask me, what's it like moving out to that liberal, I was like, first of all, I'm coming from an area that, I'm pretty familiar with this, but you don't understand Battleground at all. I mean, Battleground is not what you think. It's like you just said, you're coming from Houston, and Battleground feels more conservative than Houston.
Well, Houston's pretty liberal, actually.
Well, yeah, in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, I think people, I've come to really appreciate Battleground and really think it's a special place, and I hope it stays that way. I know we were talking too about the growth of the town, and we don't want to be like those people that say, well, we're here now, close the door of the ark. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you don't lose what made the town great. So as it grows, we're hopeful that we can be, well, maybe a voice for making sure that the development of the town is healthy. So anyway,
Healthy's a good word.
Yeah, right. Well, this has been great. Thank you for your time, guys. We'll be posting this show pretty soon, and we'll certainly let you know when it's up and available to share. And we'd encourage folks to check out your business and other things that you guys are involved with. Word of Grace, which is a great church, and you don't have to be Russian to go there.
No,
you're proof of that.
Yes, well, we have an English service along with the Russian service, and both are growing. A lot of people that are non-Slavic now are coming.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, anyway, good to be with you too, Max.
Yeah, likewise. This is awesome.
I particularly appreciate the fact that you brought pizza today, Max. All right. Well, thanks a lot, folks. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Battleground Project, and we'll be in touch whenever our next show comes out.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.